Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting knife review by George. And today we're going to talk about the Wusthof knife set. This one comes with two knives. I'm going to review them at the same time. As usual, I would like to skip the first page, which covers the specifications, which you can find under the video description of this video. Now, we're going to dive right into the review section. Overall, the quality is good, but there is a couple of issues that I like to point out. And the price of this knife is, I got it on a deal. Actually, a friend of mine got it for me when he was overseas. So the price was not too bad. But I think there's certainly a lot of competitive options for the price you pay and the material you get. Now, coming down to the details. The quality of this thing is actually mostly pretty good. The fit and finish is very nice, and you can see that it is made by a reputable manufacturer. Wusthof is one of the probably one of the most famous knife manufacturers in the world. And the knife is very sharp out of the box as well. So we're going to do a cut test here. We just do a cut test for the small knife as well. So, as you can see, the sharpness is very good out of the box. And as far as I remember, the first time I had got this knife out of the box, I was able to almost pop open a hair. So the edge is finished, polished as well. So it's a very, very sharp edge. The knife has a full tongue construction, so you can see it goes through all the entire length of the handle. And the knife is using this particular steel, which is the X50 Cr MoV 15. So according to the internet, this is a sort of a proprietary stainless steel used by Wusthof. But they are similar to the 440A or the 420HC steel in terms of the chemical contents. But they are reasonably easy to maintain using a sharpening rod. And they are very good in terms of corrosion resistance. There is a bolster on the knife to create somewhat balance if you are into that kind of thing. And it adds a bit of weight when you're cutting as well. The knife is grounded very thin behind the edge. It would be hard to show you here. Yeah, so it's very thin behind the edge, so that means it's very good at slicing and cutting into material or cutting into food for that matter. And just sharpening this thing would be easy as well due to the thinness. There's a reasonably amount of belly in here in case you like the rocking cut, or at least this thing is gonna sharpen very well on the flat bench stone as well. The handle here is quite big. Obviously, you know, it's designed by it's for Western customers. So I've got medium-sized hand, and I hold this thing. I've got about maybe 2 inches left in here on the handle. So if you have big hands, using this thing will still be very comfortable. And the handle here has a curve here, which I enjoy because it gives you extra security instead of losing the knife or slipping. Now the retail price of this knife is I can't remember how much if it wasn't for the deal. But what I do remember is the price of this knife would be kind of on the higher side for the material you get. So in the market today, you can get certainly something like Japanese kitchen knives, which has VG10 core and Damascus pattern, and it costs similar price. So I think also Victorinox offers a I'm sorry, not chicken, offers the line of kitchen knives which has similar in terms of similarity in terms of material, but the Victorinox are usually on the cheaper side of the price range. So competitive option is quite a few. And this thing has a rivet design, which is common amongst a lot of the kitchen knives these days. But I prefer something you can take apart to clean and wash, or to maintain. The finish on the back of this blade is not very refined. Where it comes down to the fit and finish, this thing strangely somehow doesn't have excellent fit and finish. As you can see, the marking there just means they didn't actually polish or at least grind the back of the knife enough to actually get rid of the machining mark. So there's some in here, and there's actually quite a long line of these little unfinished dots. That's quite surprising coming from a reputable company like this. So, once again, I said the price is not cheap. And the edge, when it come to me, I found a small dent, maybe just on right here. You can barely pick it up from the camera. It's got a very, very small dent. That just looks to me is not their quality control is perhaps not the best in the world. But now this is really a major deal. Like I said, just perhaps for the price, they shouldn't have happened. And the small knife, certainly, I could say the same about I think the edge has slightly, somewhat imperfection here and there. Let's just do another paper cut test to see if I can pick it up. No. You just have to take my word for it. So that's one of the problem as well. This knife is not recommended to cut through something very hard. Like frozen food, don't even think about this, because this knife here is just so thin around the edge region. Frozen food will probably cause some damage to it. And certainly you should not put anything like this into a dishwasher. It would definitely damage the knife. If the handle doesn't break, the knife will rust, or here and there is going to have some problems. If you're thinking of dishwasher safe, I bought a knife a while ago that was dishwasher safe. Dishwasher safe knives, actually, as you can see, this guy, it's all stainless steel construction. It's just made of one piece of stainless steel, and the handle is hollow, but on the back it's sealed. And knives like that could be dishwasher safe if you're really into that kind of feature. But be aware, a lot of knives are a lot of cheap knives are made that way today in China or something. So the knife may or may not be that great when you find those kind of knives. Otherwise, I think some of the small paring knife offered by Victorinox can be dishwasher safe. So moving down to the positive points based on my speculation. Now this X50 Cr MoV steel is actually a kind of a very easy to maintain using a honing rod, because the steel is actually relatively softer on the Rockwell RC scale. I think it's around 56. So basically that means if you don't really sharpen the knife or anything, you have a honing rod. This knife, you just swipe it on the honing rod, it will bring back the sharpness easy because it's relatively softness. And the bolster on the handle in here, in my opinion, could potentially make the knife somewhat stronger. I found a picture online where people have broken this knife before, and I'll show you. It's not this particular one, but as you can see, where it broke is the plastic where the handle meets the the tang. The reason is that according to most of the logic, sort of a logic deduction, we can deduce that for any material or any tool to break, where it breaks is the weakest point of that entire tool. For this knife, for example, it will probably break around here because it's really narrow and less material to support any sort of force. Similarly, if this knife didn't have this bolster here, it would have just also very little material in here holding what is a very big knife and a relatively smaller handle. So having the bolster is adding more material, reinforcing this joint. Although that just means when the knife does break, it probably will break somewhere else, like in this region. Anyways, it's reinforcing the knife somewhat. Now, final notes. I have a lot to say about this knife due to a couple of things. For one, I would like to invite you to correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have a different opinion from me, I would like to have a discussion with you as well. For one, the knife is marketed as a forged knife, not a stamped knife. Now, what that means, or at least what it sounds like it means, is that someone, a blacksmith, may be using a hammer and hammer the steel, a piece of hot steel into the shape of this knife. That's what it sounded like to me when I first heard the term forged, not stamped. Now, what actually happens is that today, all the knife manufacturers, to actually drive the cost down, they will mostly have to use some kind of cutter, like laser cutter, water jet cutter, plasma cutter, to cut sheet steels into the right shape, where they then grind and make into a knife. And Wusthof is actually not any different from that. In fact, they are using a somewhat like a older technique, which is using a stamp. What I found on the internet is this. I have a colored picture here to show you. According to YouTube, there's a manufacturing process filmed in the Wusthof factory, and this is the picture showing that the knife was originally a piece of rectangular steel, and that's the hot glowing part is actually the bolster. They put the bolster on and have this stamp and crush the whole thing into the right shape to make the knife that you see today. How is that not a stamped knife? Actually, that is stamped knife. It simply just has a bolster, which is sort of kind of, you can say it's forged because of the bolster, but otherwise the whole thing is mostly stamped. So I think it's just a marketing scheme, because people thinking about stamping knife, oh, it's kind of cheaper because it's using it's a very easy mechanism to crush the knife into the shape. But Wusthof is doing the same, and in fact stamping it is probably a little bit less accurate than, say, using the laser cutter. So I think that's something that they've sort of used as a marketing scheme. And there's probably nothing too wrong with it, except it misleads people into thinking, oh, this thing's manually labored and hammered into the right shape, and it must be quite good. Because when you watch movies, all the blacksmiths with a lot of skills hammer their steel or forge the steel into the right shape, right? And the other thing is that being a very major knife manufacturer in the world, you know, Wusthof is, I think, alongside with Henkel, the J.A. Henkel knife manufacturer, they are both sort of dominating in terms of the kitchen markets. If you're talking about Western knives, not Western-made, Western country-made kitchen knives, these two names usually come up for normal non-knife collectors. And that means they should be making like probably millions of knives every year or so. And I could not understand why they couldn't drive the price down. for something of this sort of material is X50 Cr MoV 15. That's kind of like a 440A steel, and not considered by all means as a very high quality or high cost steel. So a lot of this price you pay for this knife simply goes into perhaps one, the marketing department, and two, their brand, and three, the material, of course, labor costs and all that. But this knife is actually made through a very, very highly automated process. If you see the video, which I put it in the description section with a link, and you watch that video, the entire factory runs on a lot of automated process, from the stamping process there, and then there's a robot sharpening this knife, and the robot actually tests the knife's edge, and there's like transports. A lot of those were not labors, they were actually robots. And robots, what it means is they should drive the price down. And I think the price of this knife is simply not very competitive to other good quality knife manufacturers like the Japanese ones or the Victorinox. And some of the Chinese made knives, I can see their price is quite low, and their quality is getting close to this knife, you know. Just having mentioned like the quality of this particular model is, this particular one I have is not really, you see, it's not very high quality. I don't know how they skip the process. So I think you certainly have a lot of competitive options out there. The only reason that this knife is still doing so well, this company is doing so well, I think it's just because, well, their marketing is good. You can find this knife in just about in any kitchen store. And so in conclusion, would I recommend this knife? I would say think about it, watch my review and think about what I said, and does price matter to you? If it does matter, then this knife is not really the right one for you. And does the material matter? Because if it does matter, again, you can get maybe the Japanese knives. They have better material. But if you like something made in Germany and has a good reputation and has a very well-known brand name, this knife, I mean, it's not terrible. It's just for the price, I think there's a lot more in the market you can look forward to. So that's my conclusion. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll put some links in here below for some of the higher-end Japanese knives, which I really enjoyed. Watch my reviews and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. You have a good day.